She showed up to a blind date dressed like a beggar, but the CEO sitting across fell in love at first. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to today's story. She showed up to a blind date dressed like a beggar, but the CEO sitting across fell in love at first sight. Sounds crazy, right? But what happens next will completely surprise you. The restaurant buzzed with the soft hum of conversation and the clinking of silverware. It was one of those fancy places where everything from the food to the decor was designed to impress. The warm lighting cast a soft glow across the room, making everything look a little more magical. But Emma Brooks, sitting at a small table in the back corner, didn't feel magical at all. Her reflection in the window reminded her of how out of place she felt. The second-hand dress she'd picked up from a thrift store fit a little too tight, and her shoes, well, they had seen better days. She pulled at the hem of her dress, her hands trembling. I promised Jenny I'd go through with this, she whispered to herself, taking a deep breath before pushing the door open. This was her first blind date, and she had no idea what to expect. She only knew she needed this to work. Not for love, just for the distraction. She scanned the restaurant, looking for her date. Then her eyes landed on a man sitting at the back of the room, alone, engrossed in his phone. He looked polished, confident, everything she wasn't. This has to be him, she thought, her heart racing. She walked up to him, her heels clicking against the floor, nerves bubbling in her stomach. Hi, you must be Kevin. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you, she said with a bright smile, her voice a little higher than normal. The man looked up, blinking in confusion. He hesitated for a moment, clearly trying to process her words. Hi Emma, he said, his voice low but polite. For a second, she wondered if she'd gotten the wrong person. But then she took a seat across from him, her nervous energy bubbling over. I know, this is a little awkward. Blind dates are strange, right? Jenny told me you might be a little quiet, so don't worry. I can talk enough for both of us. Liam Parker blinked at her again, clearly taken aback, but something in her demeanor made him hesitate before correcting her. He'd been ready to tell her she had the wrong person, but then he paused, intrigued. She was nothing like the polished women he was used to, those who knew the right things to say, how to network, how to impress him with their connections. She was real. She was different. He wasn't sure why, but he found himself not wanting to correct her just yet. Right? He said slowly, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Blind dates are definitely something else. Emma laughed nervously, grabbing the water glass in front of her and taking a sip. Tell me about it, she said, trying to ease the awkwardness. Jenny's been trying to set me up for months, but I've been too busy working. What do you do? Liam asked, genuinely curious now. I'm a waitress, Emma replied with a shrug, embarrassed. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills. Well, most of them anyway. She gave a small, self-deprecating smile. What about you? What do you do? Liam hesitated. I work in tech, he said simply. Emma smiled brightly, though there was a slight confusion in her eyes. Tech? That sounds cool, like coding and apps and stuff. I'm terrible with computers, she said, a bit awkwardly, trying to keep the conversation flowing. Liam chuckled softly. Something like that, he said, leaning back in his chair. He studied her for a moment. She wasn't what he expected. She wasn't trying to impress him with her resume or name-drop people she knew. She was just herself, and that, for some reason, made her more interesting than anyone he'd met in a long time. As the evening wore on, Emma shared stories about her life, her struggles to make ends meet, and her dream of one day opening her own art studio. Liam listened intently, laughing at the right moments, feeling a connection he hadn't felt in ages. When she spoke about her passion for art, he could see the spark in her eyes, the same spark he used to have before his life became about business and meetings and the weight of expectations. Emma paused for a moment, her eyes studying him. You're not what I expected, she said, suddenly thoughtful. Jenny said you were reserved. Liam raised an eyebrow, a bit surprised by her observation. I guess I'm a little reserved, he said, his smile softening. Emma's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and froze. Hey Emma, where are you? I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin. Her heart sank as she realized her mistake. She wasn't sitting at the right table after all. Oh my God, she muttered, standing up quickly. I'm so sorry. I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing. She grabbed her coat, her face burning with embarrassment, and started to walk away. But Liam stood up too. Emma, it's okay, he said, reaching out a hand, though she was already halfway to the door. The door swung open as she hurried out, leaving Liam standing there, his thoughts a whirlwind. He hadn't expected to feel anything. He hadn't planned on this. But as he watched her disappear into the night, he realized he didn't want that to be the last time he saw her. And strangely, that thought bothered him more than he could understand. Liam Parker stood there, staring after her, feeling an odd sense of regret that he hadn't corrected her sooner. But now, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something that would change his life forever. The next morning, Emma woke up with a pounding headache. She had barely slept, the events of last night replaying in her mind over and over again. The embarrassing moment when she'd realized she was at the wrong table, the unexpected connection she'd felt with the man she thought was Kevin, and the way he'd smiled at her despite everything. She groaned, rubbing her eyes. What had she been thinking? Stupid, she muttered to herself, swinging her legs off the bed and standing up. She needed to focus, get her day started. There was no use thinking about a man she'd probably never see again. Or was there? The thought kept nagging at her as she shuffled to the small kitchen in her tiny apartment, still in yesterday's clothes. The morning light filtered through the dingy blinds, casting a soft glow over the room. Emma didn't have much, but she had her dreams, and that was something. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Jenny. Hey, are you okay? You looked like you were about to pass out when you ran out of there last night. Should I call you? Emma stared at the message for a few moments, then sighed and typed back. I'm fine. Just a mix-up. I'll tell you everything later. She didn't want to talk about it. Not yet. She wasn't ready to explain to Jenny that she'd made a fool of herself on a blind date, especially when the man she'd sat across from wasn't even the one she was supposed to meet. After a quick breakfast, Emma grabbed her bag and headed out the door. It was time to get back to reality. As she walked to work, her mind kept drifting back to Liam Parker. Who was he really? What was he doing in that restaurant last night? Was he really just a tech guy, as he claimed, or was there something more to him? She shook her head, trying to focus. It was just a mix-up, nothing more. At work, the day dragged on. She served drinks, took orders, and kept her head down. But every time she passed the window, she couldn't help but glance outside, hoping to see him. Get a grip, she told herself, as she refocused on her tasks. He's probably some rich guy who forgot all about you already. But as the evening approached and the diner began to empty out, Emma's phone buzzed again. She pulled it out, surprised to see a number she didn't recognize. Hesitantly, she answered. Hello. Hi, is this Emma? A deep, familiar voice came through the line. It's Liam Parker. From last night. Emma froze. Her heart skipped a beat, and her hand tightened around the phone. Liam Parker? She repeated, trying to keep her voice steady. The same guy who ran out of the restaurant in embarrassment. She couldn't believe it. Yes, that's me, Liam said with a light laugh. Look, I'm really sorry about what happened last night. I should have told you who I really was. Emma opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught in her throat. She didn't know what to say. She hadn't expected this call, hadn't expected him to reach out at all. I didn't mean to embarrass you, Liam continued. I was just intrigued by you. I didn't want to make things weird. Emma's mind raced. Intrigued by her? Why would a man like him be interested in someone like her? I don't know what to say, she whispered, still in shock. I was the one who ran out like a fool. I'm really sorry. You don't need to apologize, Liam replied, his voice warm and reassuring. I'm the one who should be sorry. I'd really like to make it up to you. How about we meet for coffee, just the two of us? No blind date pressure, just a chance to talk. Emma's heart fluttered at the idea. Could this really be happening? Was he serious? Okay, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'd like that. They agreed on a time and place, and when Emma hung up the phone, she felt a mix of excitement and confusion. What was going on? Why would a man like Liam Parker want to meet her again? And what did he mean by making it up to her? She didn't know the answers, but for the first time in a long while, she was eager to find out. Later that afternoon, Emma stood in front of the coffee shop, her stomach in knots. She had dressed carefully, nothing too fancy, but enough to feel like she wasn't completely out of place. She pushed the door open, the bell above it jingling softly as she stepped inside. The shop was cozy, with warm lighting and a comforting smell of freshly brewed coffee. And there, at a corner table, was Liam. He was already there, his attention focused on his phone, but as soon as he saw her, he smiled. "Hey, Emma," he said, standing up. "I'm really glad you came." Emma smiled, feeling the tension melt away as she took a seat across from him. "Thanks for reaching out," she said, still trying to process everything. "I wasn't expecting this." "I know. I didn't think you would," Liam said. "But I wanted to get to know you, to make up for last night. I wasn't being honest with you, and I'm sorry for that." Emma felt her heart race. He was being sincere. "I get it," she said, nodding slowly. "It was a strange situation." Liam chuckled. "Yeah, it definitely was. But I really enjoyed talking to you. I'd like to get to know you better, if you're open to it." Emma's thoughts swirled as she looked at him. He seemed genuine, but she still had doubts. She wasn't sure if she was ready to let her guard down. But something about him, his warmth, his sincerity, made her want to try. She took a deep breath and smiled. "I'd like that too." And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she might be stepping into something real. Something that could change her life in a way she never expected. As Emma sat across from Liam in the cozy coffee shop, she couldn't help but feel a strange mixture of nervousness and excitement. The quiet hum of conversation from other patrons filled the space around them, but it felt like it was just the two of them. Liam's smile was warm, but there was something about the way he looked at her that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't in a long time. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, trying to hide the fact that she felt out of place. "So, what have you been up to lately?" Liam asked, breaking the silence. Emma took a deep breath, trying to collect her thoughts. "Well, work is work," she said with a light laugh. "It's not glamorous, but it keeps me busy. You know, serving food, cleaning up after people, making sure I don't spill anything on the expensive suits." She gave a wry smile, and Liam chuckled. "I can imagine," he said. "But it sounds like you've got your hands full." Emma nodded, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. "I do. It's just, sometimes it feels like there's no way out, you know? Like I'm stuck in this loop of working hard, but never getting anywhere." She paused for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. "I dream of opening my own art studio one day, but it just seems impossible. I can barely make rent most months." There was a vulnerability in her voice that she didn't usually allow herself to show. But something about Liam made it feel easier. He didn't look at her like she was just another waitress. He listened, really listened as if her words mattered. "That's a big dream," Liam said softly. "But I believe you can make it happen. You have the drive." "I can see that." Emma glanced up at him, her heart skipping a beat. Did he really mean that? Or was he just being kind because she was sitting across from him, sharing her troubles? "You don't even know me," she replied with a small laugh, trying to brush it off. But Liam shook his head. "I don't need to know everything about you to see that you're capable. I know what it's like to feel like you're stuck. I've been there. But sometimes, you need a little push, or maybe just the right opportunity." His words hung in the air between them, and Emma found herself wondering if he was talking about himself as much as he was talking about her. "What about you?" she asked, leaning forward slightly. "What's your story?" Liam seemed to hesitate for a moment, as though weighing how much to share. "I didn't always have it easy either," he began. "I started out in a small town, just like everyone else. Worked hard, studied hard. Eventually, I got a job in tech, started climbing the ladder. And now," he trailed off for a moment, and Emma noticed a shift in his tone. "Now, I'm just trying to figure out what's next. What really matters." Emma's brow furrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" Liam seemed to think about it for a moment before continuing. "I spent years focusing on success, on building my company, and at some point, I realized that wasn't everything. I was surrounded by people who wanted something from me, but not many who actually cared about me. That's why I wanted to meet you, Emma." She blinked in surprise. "Me?" "Yeah," Liam said with a soft smile. "You're different. You're real. You didn't sit down and try to impress me with your resume or your connections. You were just you. And I appreciated that." Emma felt her heart race. This wasn't what she expected. This wasn't some business meeting or a casual coffee with a stranger. This felt more like a conversation with someone who actually saw her, flaws and all. "I didn't know what to expect either," Emma admitted, her voice a little shaky. I I didn't expect to be sitting here with a millionaire. Liam chuckled at that. I'm just a guy, Emma. A guy who's trying to figure out life, just like everyone else. Emma smiled softly, feeling a sense of ease she hadn't felt in a long time. There was something about Liam that made her believe in herself, even when she doubted her own worth. So, what happens now? She asked quietly, her gaze meeting his. I think we keep talking, Liam said with a grin. And maybe, if you're open to it, I can help you make that dream of yours come true. I know some people who could help you get your art studio started. Emma's heart skipped. Could this really be happening? She had dreamed of having her own studio for years, but it always seemed like a distant fantasy. To have someone who believed in her, someone like Liam, offering to help? It felt surreal. You would do that for me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam nodded. If you're willing to take the chance, I think we could make it happen. The weight of his words settled in her chest, and for the first time in a long while, Emma allowed herself to believe in something bigger than her current struggles. She took a deep breath, feeling a sense of hope rise inside her. Okay, she said, her voice steady now. I'm ready to take that chance. Liam's eyes lit up, and he leaned forward slightly. I'm glad to hear that. You won't regret it, Emma. I promise. As they continued to talk, the world outside the coffee shop faded away. Emma no longer felt like she was stuck in a loop of endless struggle. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had a shot at something more, a future where her dreams weren't just fantasies. And for that, she had Liam to thank. The next few weeks felt like a whirlwind for Emma. She had never imagined that a simple mistake at a blind date would lead her to where she was now. Her phone rang constantly, calls from people Liam knew, all offering to help her get her art studio up and running. It was overwhelming, but it was also a dream come true. She had never believed her dreams were possible, but now it seemed like everything was shifting in her favor. But with every new opportunity, the fear of failure seemed to grow. Emma had always been someone who worked hard to get by, but this was different. This was a chance to truly change her life, and with that came the fear that maybe she wasn't ready for it. One evening, after a long day at work, Emma sat in her small apartment, staring at the sketches she'd been working on for her art studio. Her hands shook slightly as she held the pencil, trying to find the courage to sketch something that could be the beginning of something real. Just as she was about to put her pencil down in frustration, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. Hey, how's everything going with the plans for the studio? It read. She hesitated, unsure of what to say. She hadn't told him about the doubts she'd been having, how scared she was to take such a big leap. But something about Liam's constant encouragement made her want to try. She typed back quickly. It's going well. A little overwhelming, but I think I can do this. Liam replied almost immediately. I know you can. You're doing amazing. Just don't forget to take a breath every now and then, okay? Emma smiled at the message, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. His words had a way of calming her, making her feel like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't in this alone. The next morning, as she walked to the diner for her shift, Emma's mind kept returning to Liam's offer. He had been so supportive, not just with the studio, but with everything else in her life. He had become more than just a man she met by accident. He had become someone she trusted, someone who believed in her more than she believed in herself. She had always been the type of person who kept her emotions in check, but the more time she spent with Liam, the more she realized she was beginning to open up in ways she never had before. She had never allowed herself to depend on someone else, but with him, it felt different. As the day went on, Emma kept finding herself glancing at her phone, waiting for another message from Liam. The idea of taking that next step, of finally opening her studio, was both exciting and terrifying. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that she had already taken the first step just by letting someone else in. Later that evening, after her shift, Emma met Liam at a nearby park. They sat on a bench under the dim street lights, the quiet of the night surrounding them. I've been thinking, Emma said, her voice soft. About everything. About the studio, about us. Liam turned to her, his expression open and patient. What about us? He asked, his voice steady. Emma hesitated for a moment, trying to find the right words. I don't know if I'm ready for all of this, she said finally. The studio, the changes. I've been doing everything on my own for so long. I'm not sure if I can let go of that control. Liam's eyes softened as he listened. Emma, he said gently, you don't have to do this alone. I'm not asking you to. I just want to be here for you, however you need me to be. His words hit her in a way she wasn't expecting, and she felt her chest tighten. It wasn't just about the studio or her dreams anymore. It was about her own fear of allowing herself to be vulnerable. I don't want to mess this up, she whispered. I've always been scared of needing someone else. Liam smiled, reaching out to gently take her hand. It's okay to need someone, he said softly. We're not meant to go through life alone. You don't have to be perfect, Emma. You just have to be yourself. Emma felt a tear slip down her cheek, but it wasn't one of sadness. It was one of relief. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she didn't have to carry everything on her shoulders. She didn't have to do it all alone. And maybe, just maybe, that was the key to making her dreams come true. As they sat together in the quiet of the night, Emma realized that her life was no longer just about surviving. It was about living. And for the first time, she felt like she was ready to truly live. With Liam by her side, she felt like anything was possible. The weeks that followed were a blur for Emma. Every morning, she woke up with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years, the weight of uncertainty slowly lifting from her shoulders. With Liam's support, she was finally beginning to see her dreams take shape. The art studio was no longer just a fantasy, it was becoming a reality. Liam had introduced her to several key people in the art world, each one eager to help her get started. They offered advice, resources, and even some financial backing, which made Emma feel like she was on the verge of something big. But despite all the progress, there was still a part of her that couldn't shake the feeling of doubt. She had always been self-sufficient, relying on no one but herself. Letting Liam into her world had been one thing, but now that everything was starting to fall into place, she feared she might be relying too much on him. One evening, after a long day of meetings and phone calls, Emma sat at the small kitchen table in her apartment, staring at the sketches for the studio that had started to come together. Her mind was racing with all the decisions she still had to make. She hadn't heard from Liam all day, and though she didn't want to admit it, she found herself missing his presence. It wasn't just the business side of things, it was the way he made her feel like she was capable of anything. She wanted to reach out to him, but a part of her hesitated. What if she was getting too dependent on him? What if she was leaning on him in a way that wasn't healthy? Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a text from Liam. Hey, how's everything going with the studio? I've been thinking about you today. Emma smiled, her heart skipping a beat. She quickly typed back, trying to keep her response casual. It's going great. Just a lot to juggle, but I'm making progress. Almost immediately, Liam replied, I'm proud of you. You're doing amazing things, Emma. Don't forget to take a moment to breathe. Emma's fingers lingered over the screen, her thoughts swirling. She had been so focused on making the studio a success, on proving that she could do this, that she had almost forgotten to enjoy the process. She had almost forgotten to enjoy the people around her. She stared at her phone for a few more moments, then decided to text him back. I miss you. The message was simple, but it felt like the right thing to say. She had spent so much time worrying about the future, she hadn't taken a moment to appreciate the present, appreciate him. Liam's response came almost instantly. I miss you too. Want to meet up for dinner tonight? Emma's heart fluttered. It had been a while since they had spent time together outside of work, and she realized how much she had missed his company. She quickly agreed, and soon they were meeting at a small, cozy restaurant they both loved. The night felt easy and familiar, the way it had always been between them. But this time, there was something different. Emma could feel the change in herself. She wasn't just a woman with big dreams anymore. She was a woman with someone who believed in her. As they shared a meal, Liam looked at her with that warm, genuine smile she had grown to love. I've been thinking about something, he said, his voice soft. About us. Emma's heart skipped. What do you mean? She asked, unsure of what he was getting at. Liam took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving hers. I think I've fallen for you, Emma. The words hung in the air between them, and Emma's heart raced. She hadn't expected him to say that, but at the same time, it felt like everything had been leading to this moment. She searched his eyes, looking for any sign of hesitation, but all she saw was sincerity. I think I've fallen for you too, she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. I've never felt this way before. Liam reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. I know we've both been through a lot, but I don't want to let fear hold us back. I want to build something real with you, Emma. I want to be there for you, not just as your business partner, but as someone who cares about you deeply. Emma's chest tightened with emotion. She had always been afraid of letting people in, afraid of trusting others. But with Liam, it felt different. He wasn't asking for anything in return, not really. He was simply offering her his heart. "I want that too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to build something real with you too." Liam smiled, his thumb gently brushing the back of her hand. "Then let's take this one step at a time," he said softly. "We don't have to rush. We'll take it slow and see where it goes. But I promise, Emma, I'm here for you." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling of peace she hadn't known in a long time. She had spent so much of her life feeling alone, feeling like she had to do everything by herself. But now, she realized that maybe it wasn't so bad to have someone by her side, someone who believed in her, someone who loved her. As the night drew to a close, they walked out of the restaurant hand in hand, the future ahead of them feeling full of possibilities. Emma knew that the road wouldn't always be easy, but with Liam by her side, she felt ready for whatever came next. She was no longer just dreaming of a better life. She was living it. As the days passed, Emma felt herself growing more confident, not just in her ability to run the art studio, but in the relationship she was building with Liam. She had always kept her emotions tightly under control, but with him, it was different. With him, she could be vulnerable, and that was a feeling she was starting to embrace. Her dream of opening the studio was becoming a reality, and with Liam's unwavering support, she was starting to believe in herself more than ever before. It wasn't easy, though. There were still days when doubt crept in, when the weight of everything she was trying to accomplish felt overwhelming. But every time she saw Liam's smile or heard his voice, the fear would dissipate, if only for a moment. They spent their days working side by side, Liam helping her with the business side of things, while Emma focused on the creative aspects. They made a great team, even if it meant sacrificing some of their personal time together. But they both knew it would be worth it in the end. One afternoon, as Emma was going over the budget for the studio, her phone buzzed with a message from Liam. "Hey, I've been thinking about something," the text read. "How would you feel about a trip? Just the two of us, no work, no studio stuff, just a little getaway to relax and recharge." Emma smiled at the idea. It had been months since they had taken any time for themselves outside of the studio, and a break sounded perfect. She quickly typed back, "I think that sounds amazing. Where are we going?" Liam's response came swiftly, "I'll make the arrangements. I'll keep it a surprise." The idea of a surprise was enough to excite Emma, and the thought of spending quality time with Liam, away from the hustle of the studio, was exactly what she needed. A few days later, Liam picked her up from her apartment. He was wearing a casual jacket and a grin that told her he was up to something. "Are you ready?" he asked, holding out a small duffel bag for her. Emma raised an eyebrow. "Where are we going?" Liam just smiled and shook his head. "It's a surprise. Just trust me." They drove in comfortable silence, the city fading away as they left behind the bustle of daily life. The further they went, the more relaxed Emma felt. It felt good to not think about the studio for a while, to just enjoy the ride. They arrived at a small, charming cottage by the lake, surrounded by trees and peace. It was everything Emma hadn't known she needed, a place to breathe, to pause, and to appreciate the simple things. The lake shimmered under the late afternoon sun, and the smell of pine filled the air. Liam unpacked their things while Emma stood by the water, taking it all in. "This is perfect," she said, her voice filled with awe. "Thank you, Liam." He walked over and wrapped his arms around her from behind, pulling her close. "I'm glad you like it. You've been working so hard, and I wanted to give you a chance to unwind." They spent the next few days hiking, enjoying the quiet mornings by the lake, and talking about everything and nothing at all. It was the first time in months that Emma truly felt at peace, without the constant pressure of work or expectations. One evening, as they sat on the porch, sipping wine and watching the sunset, Liam turned to Emma with a serious look in his eyes. "I know this might sound a little sudden," he began, "but I've been thinking about the future a lot lately. About us." Emma looked at him, her heart beating a little faster. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice soft. "I mean that I want this," Liam said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I want you, Emma. I want a future with you, not just in business, but in life. I'm ready to take that step with you, whenever you are." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had never expected this conversation, but as the words hung in the air, she realized how much she wanted the same thing. She had spent so long keeping herself guarded, afraid of being hurt. But with Liam, it felt different. It felt right. I want that too, she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. I want a future with you, Liam. Liam smiled, the weight of his words lifting between them. He took her hand, squeezing it gently. Then let's build it together, he said softly. One step at a time. Emma felt her heart swell with emotion, the fear of the unknown starting to fade. In that moment, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she wasn't facing them alone. With Liam by her side, she felt like she could conquer anything. And for the first time, she truly believed in a future where her dreams, both personal and professional, could come true. They spent the rest of their time in the cottage wrapped in each other's company, creating memories that Emma would hold on to forever. As they left the peaceful retreat and headed back to their lives, Emma knew that the next chapter of her story was just beginning, and it was one she was ready to embrace with open arms. The weeks after their getaway felt like a new beginning for Emma and Liam. The time spent together in the cottage had deepened their bond, and now, back in the rhythm of everyday life, Emma felt more centered and sure of herself. The art studio was coming together beautifully, thanks to all the support Liam had connected her with. But as much as she had come to rely on him, she also knew she had to prove to herself that she could make this dream her own. It wasn't just about the studio. It was about creating a life she was proud of, one where she stood on her own 2 feet. One afternoon, as she was putting the final touches on the studio space, she received a call from Liam. Hey, I've got a surprise for you, he said, his voice full of excitement. What's the surprise? Emma asked, trying to keep her voice light. I've arranged a meeting with a few investors who are interested in backing your studio, he replied. Emma froze, her hands shaking slightly as she held the phone. Investors? For my studio, she repeated, her voice catching in her throat. Yes, they're excited about your vision. I think it's the right time to make things official. I'm really proud of how far you've come, Emma. Emma's heart swelled at his words, but she also felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. The thought of taking on investors, of turning her passion into a business venture that involved other people's money, was both thrilling and terrifying. She had always been wary of the business side of things, preferring to focus on the art. Are you sure I'm ready for this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I wouldn't suggest it if I didn't believe in you, Liam said gently. This is a big step, but I know you can handle it. We're doing this together, remember? Emma took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside her. She knew he was right. She had come so far. This wasn't just about art anymore. It was about building something sustainable, something lasting. Okay, she said finally, her voice steady. Let's do it. A few days later, Emma found herself sitting at a sleek conference table, the investors she had never met before sitting across from her. The room was filled with tension as they discussed the potential of her studio, the vision she had for bringing art to the community. Emma spoke confidently, though her nerves were bubbling just beneath the surface. She could feel Liam's reassuring presence beside her, and it gave her the strength to push through her doubts. The meeting went on for over an hour, and by the end, the investors agreed to move forward. Emma couldn't believe it. Her dream was no longer just hers. It was becoming a reality, with the potential to grow into something even bigger than she had ever imagined. As they walked out of the meeting room, Liam turned to her with a proud smile. You did amazing, he said, pulling her into a hug. I knew you could do it. Emma smiled, feeling a mix of disbelief and joy. I can't believe it, she said softly. This is really happening. It is, Liam agreed. And this is just the beginning. That evening, as Emma sat on her couch, processing everything that had happened, her phone buzzed again. It was a text from Liam. I'm so proud of you. You're stronger than you think, Emma. And I'm here every step of the way. She smiled, reading his message over and over again. She felt so incredibly grateful for him, for everything he had done for her. But more than that, she was proud of herself. She had taken a huge leap, and she had done it. The studio was no longer just a dream, it was real. And as she lay down to sleep that night, Emma realized something. She had spent so many years worrying about whether she was good enough, whether she could make it. But now, with the support of people who believed in her, and most importantly, with the belief she had found in herself, Emma knew she was capable of anything. The future was bright, and no matter what challenges came their way, she and Liam would face them together. As the weeks passed, Emma settled into her new role as both an artist and business owner, managing the studio she had once only dreamed about. With the investors on board, things were moving faster than she had anticipated, and while that brought excitement, it also brought a new set of challenges. The pressure to succeed was heavier now, but Emma found herself rising to the occasion, her determination growing stronger with each step. Liam was there every step of the way, helping to navigate the business side of things, and as much as Emma had feared relying on him, she was starting to see how important his support was. He was more than just a business partner. He was her rock, the person who helped her believe in herself even on the hardest days. One evening, after a long day of meetings and finalizing some paperwork, Emma sat in her office at the studio, going over plans for an upcoming art exhibition. The walls were lined with beautiful pieces of art, each one a testament to her hard work, her vision, and her commitment. As she flipped through the details of the event, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Hey, how's everything going? I was thinking about you today. Let me know if you need anything." Emma smiled, feeling the familiar warmth of his words. He had a way of making everything seem possible, even when she felt overwhelmed. She typed back quickly, "Everything's going well. Just a little stressed, but I'll manage. Thanks for always checking in." Liam's reply came moments later. "You're doing amazing, Emma. Don't forget that. I'm so proud of you." Emma's heart swelled at his words. It had been a long time since anyone had been proud of her in the way Liam was. She realized how much she had changed since they met. She was no longer the woman who doubted herself at every turn. She was someone who had built something real, something tangible, and it was all because of her determination and Liam's belief in her. The next day, the gallery opening was in full swing. The event was everything Emma had hoped for. Beautiful artwork on display, people gathered around discussing their favorite pieces, and a sense of excitement in the air. She looked around the room, taking it all in, feeling a deep sense of pride in how far she had come. It was a dream come true, and yet, there was still a piece of her that felt like something was missing. As she mingled with guests, chatting about her work and her vision, she found herself looking for Liam. She had invited him to the event, and though he hadn't arrived yet, she kept thinking about the future they were building together. She wanted to share this moment with him, to show him how much his support meant to her. Finally, as the evening wore on, Liam walked through the door, looking as charming as ever. His eyes immediately found hers, and he walked toward her with a proud smile. "I knew you could do it," he said, his voice full of admiration. Emma's heart fluttered. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam smiled, taking her hand in his. "I'm just glad I could help. You've done all the hard work. You've created something incredible, Emma." As the night went on, the two of them walked through the gallery together, discussing the pieces and sharing their excitement about the success of the event. The crowd grew larger, and Emma couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with gratitude. For the first time in a long while, she felt like everything was falling into place. The studio, the art, the investors, it was all coming together. But more importantly, she had Liam by her side. They were building something together, and that meant more to her than any of the accomplishments she had achieved. The night ended with applause, and Emma found herself standing at the center of the room, a sense of accomplishment filling her chest. As the guests began to leave, she took a moment to step outside, needing a breath of fresh air. The cool evening air felt good against her skin, and as she stood there, taking it all in, Liam joined her, standing quietly beside her. After a few moments, he spoke. "You've come so far, Emma. I'm so proud of everything you've accomplished." Emma smiled, her heart full. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said softly. Liam looked at her, his eyes soft. "You didn't need me to make this happen, Emma. You just needed to believe in yourself. You've always had this in you." Emma's chest tightened at his words. She knew he was right. She had always been capable, but it had taken someone like Liam to help her see that. Together, they had created something beautiful, and in that moment, Emma realized that the greatest achievement wasn't just the studio. It was the life they were building together. As they stood side by side, watching the last of the guests leave, Emma felt a sense of peace settle over her. The future was full of possibilities, and with Liam by her side, she knew that anything was possible. Months passed, and Emma's art studio became more than just a place to showcase her work. It became a thriving hub for creativity and expression, a testament to the hard work, determination, and unwavering belief in herself she had built with Liam by her side. The studio attracted more visitors, and with every new exhibition, Emma felt a little more fulfilled. It wasn't just the success of her business that mattered to her. It was the connections she was making, the people who believed in what she was doing, and the impact she was having on the community. But as the studio continued to grow, so did the complexity of her relationship with Liam. They had always been a team, but lately, there was a tension between them that Emma couldn't ignore. It wasn't anything huge, but little things, small disagreements about decisions for the studio, the way they spent their time together, began to add up. Emma knew something was off, but she didn't want to confront it, not when everything else in her life seemed to be falling into place. One evening, after another successful event at the studio, Emma and Liam sat down together to talk. The moment felt heavier than it should, and Emma felt her nerves beginning to take over. "Liam," she began, her voice soft, "I've been thinking about us." Liam looked up from his glass of wine, his eyes thoughtful. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his voice calm, though she could tell he had been feeling it too. "I think we've been so focused on the studio and everything we're building together that we've kind of lost sight of, well, us. I don't want us to just be business partners," Emma said, her heart pounding. "I want to make sure we're not losing each other in the process." Liam was quiet for a moment, his gaze lingering on her. "I understand what you're saying," he replied, his voice gentle. "And I feel it too. We've been so wrapped up in the studio that we've forgotten to nurture the other parts of our relationship. But I want to fix that, Emma. I want us to be more than just a team in business. I want us to be a team in life too." Emma's chest tightened at his words. She had feared that Liam might not feel the same, that the pressure of running the studio and the demands of their work would push them apart. But hearing him say those words made her realize that they both wanted the same thing, to find balance between their love for each other and their shared passion for the studio. "I don't want to lose what we have," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I also don't want to give up on the studio. It's everything I've ever wanted." Liam reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "And you don't have to choose, Emma. We can have both. We just need to make time for each other, outside of work, outside of the studio. I think we've been so focused on building our future that we've forgotten to live in the moment." Emma smiled, feeling the weight lift from her shoulders. She had always been afraid that she might lose herself in the pursuit of her dreams, that she might have to sacrifice the things that truly mattered to her. But sitting across from Liam, hearing his words, she realized that she didn't have to choose between love and success. She could have both, as long as they made time to nurture their relationship. "You're right," Emma said, her voice steady. "We've built something incredible together, but I don't want to lose sight of why we started this journey in the first place. I want us to grow together, not just professionally, but personally too." Liam smiled, his eyes full of warmth. "Then let's make it happen," he said. "Let's build a future where we can have it all. Our dreams, our love, our partnership. Together." Emma felt a sense of peace settle in her chest. The path ahead wasn't always going to be easy, but with Liam by her side, she knew that they could face anything together. The journey they had started together had led them to this moment, and it was only just the beginning. They spent the rest of the evening talking, laughing, and making plans for their future, both in the studio and outside of it. Emma realized that the studio wasn't just a place for her to showcase her art. It was a symbol of the life she had built with Liam, a life filled with love, creativity, and endless possibilities. As the night came to a close, they stood together in the studio, looking at the paintings on the walls. The lights above cast a soft glow on the art, making everything feel magical. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Emma said, her voice filled with awe. Liam wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "We've only just begun," he said, his voice filled with certainty. And in that moment, Emma knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, as partners, as lovers, and as dreamers. Their journey was far from over. It was just beginning.